Welcome back to another edition of Jump to It, and this week we're going to be previewing 5 of the big races from Goodwood and Galway. Now joining me on the show today we have betting experts Stephen Harris and Vincent Finegan of IrishRacing.com. Vincent, I'll start with you. I mean, how has the week at Galway been for you? What are the highlights so far?
Oh, it's been an amazing week so far. It always is. It just throws up these stories all the time. The big one obviously was the Tote Galway plate on Wednesday, where Shark Hanlon had Hewick won at 16-1. The interesting thing here is that horse won a Midlands Grand National in the UK earlier in the season, picked up 50-odd thousand for that, picked up 165,000 for winning the Galway plate, and the horse only cost €800. It's hard to believe, isn't it, how he does this? He's done that. He did it before with that horse Skyscape, is that the name? I can just not pronouncing it right, but that horse only cost 500 quid and won all sorts of big races for him. He just keeps doing it. I don't know how he does it. The other highlight was Patrick Mullins on Monday evening won the big amateur race. That's his 16th go at it. It's the amateur derby for amateur riders. They all want to win that race. It used to be called the GPT. It's now the Connacht Hotel Qualified Riders Race. But he finally got the win in it at the 16th go. And then the only negative for me was unanswered on Wednesday evening, last race, Tony Martin's. I thought that was an absolute penalty kick without the goalkeeper, but for some reason it got beat. Billy Lee maybe left it too late, got caught in a bit of traffic problems, but the horse flew home, got beaten in the neck, and they've got a chance to redeem themselves on Friday evening, last race. They run again, so all those who got their fingers burnt the other day can get them burnt again in the last race on Friday.
Well, hopefully you find us some winners as well. We've got a couple of races from Galway to preview. Stephen, as well, over to you with Goodwood and some of your highlights from the week so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a brilliant week of racing at Goodwood. It started off on ground that was probably on the easier side of good after they chucked a load of water on, but it's dried out pretty quickly. It's good, fast ground. They've had a cutaway for the first time, Joe, and that's made a big difference. The races haven't been so far. There's often a lot of trouble and hard luck stories in Goodwood, but it's really helped. It's fanned them out across the track. And while there has been a little bit of a bias up against this stands rail in the sprints, it's made for a much better spectacle. Personally speaking, I've had more seconds this week than Oliver Twist, Joe. Max Sud was 14-1, Kinross, Rocket Rodney, XJ Rascal. It's been a painful week. We have had a couple of winners, but it could have been a lot better. And of course, Oscula, who I was on quite heavily the weekend before and got beat a short head at Ascot, came out and produced a remarkable performance. So that was quite frustrating as well. So it's a case of what might have been, to be honest.
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up as well. Of course, you tipped it up on Jump to It last week, but yeah, now it actually got the win at Goodwood. So hopefully people were following the horse and hopefully got the winner during the week. Obviously, the first race we're going to look at is the 210 at Goodwood. So the Coral Summer Handicap. Soapy Stevens is the favourite for this. I can't think of a joke for it. I'm sure you can, Stephen.
Yeah.
But yeah, take us through your breakdown of this, the first race that we're going to preview.
Well, unfortunately, there's 14 runners now. I was hoping it was going to be at least 16 and we'd get the extra places. But I really do like one. Here's my betting expert value angle selection for the weekend is Boss Power. Now, he's been a really frustrating performer for Sir Michael Stout this season, but he's caught the eye at least twice, particularly at Ascot and then again at Epsom when he finished fourth. He didn't get a clear run. He made rapid headway, then disappeared down the camber before running on again late. I thought he ran a blinder, and there was plenty of money around for him last time at Chelmsford, but he didn't handle Chelmsford. He ran badly. So you have to excuse that run, but because of that, you're getting around 12 or 14-1. He's been eased £4 this season. I think he's in top form, and I think he's a well-handicapped horse. And the icing on the cake is that Harry Davis, who's the best claimer riding, takes off £5. Now, he's up to mile 6, but he's won over it before. I think everything is in place for a big run. I'll be disappointed if he doesn't go really close. I think he's one of the better bets of the weekend, to be truthful.
And anything putting you off the favourites, or is it just you like the look of Boss Power so much?
No, I just preferred Boss Power. I think it's probably at least 6-1 the field. I mean, Soapy Stevens is a typical Mark and Charlie Johnson horse, now thriving out the blue, having looked to be, pretty much pegged by the handicapper. He was in the frame a few times in the spring, but he's found his form. Whether or not he's ahead of this mark, I rather doubt. Whereas I think Boss Power, who's slipped down the weights, as I say, you'll have to forgive a bad run at Chelmsford, but he was extremely eye-catching a couple of times. I think he's the one to side with at a double-figure price.
And Vincent, just to bring you in here as well, have you taken a look at this race? You got any fancies yourself?
Yeah, what's interesting here is the favourite's obviously Mark Johnson. He's got 3 in it. He's won this 4 times in the last 7 years, so obviously he targets this race every single year. You'd have to say he'll probably win it, or has a good chance of winning it. But I thought another horse of his, the Max We Can with Ben Curtis on, is a big price. The interesting thing here is it's the first time visor on it, so maybe we'll see an improvement in the recent runs. But this horse has won 2 staying handicaps over the course. They were both over 2 miles, slightly longer than this. But at the same time, you'd have to think that horse back at its best has to have a chance. And the one I really like in it is the Holly Doyle mount, Kemhan, nearest at the finish in the Duke of Edinburgh over 1.5 miles at Royal Ascot. This extra trip will definitely suit. Holly Doyle has won in the horse before. I'd be surprised if that's not involved, certainly in the first 3. Interesting
Lovely
race.
stuff. And Vincent, we'll stick with you as well for our next race. We're going over to Galway, looking at the 2:30, the Ball Sports Handicap Hurdle. Now, 23 runners in this one, but you managed to pick out some fancy in this. Take us through your assessment.
Yeah, 20 runners, 3 reserves. We're having big fields all week in Galway. The ground is pretty quick for these hurdlers, so you might see a couple of non-runners by the time the race comes along. I see already today there's a couple of non-runners in some of the races because they've been watering. They were expecting rain to come today. It looks like it's not going to come, so it's hard to know what we'll have for tomorrow. Probably quick ground is the most likely answer to that. So some of these mightn't want it. Some of these probably won't run in the end, and maybe 1 or 2 of the reserves will get in. But this is an interesting race. We talk about that Goodwood Summer Handicap, which Mark Johnson has won 4 times in the last 7 years. Well, Willie Mullins has won this 6 times in the last 9 years. So he's going for 7 out of 10 here. He's 4 runners, and the one I really like is the one that Paul Townend has chosen. Not surprised he's chosen her. It's La Prima Donna, a 5-year-old filly this. And she'll take a lot of beating, there's no doubt about it. The question mark slightly is the trip. She hasn't run over this far before, but there's no reason why she won't get it, to be honest with you. Like it was over 2.5 miles the last day. It's only another couple of furlongs. I think she's a big contender here. She's very lightly raced. She's got some solid form in big field handicaps, which is going to be the key here. She was second to Glan at the Fairy House Festival in Easter. Glan ran well yesterday at Galway, and she was also 5th to Comprond at Punchestown, staying on 5th there. She's definitely got a chance here. There's a host of potential dangers against her. You've got an English runner here, Harry Fry and Sean Bowen have Boot Hill. You've also got a horse, Phil Dudares, Elliott and Jack Kennedy was second to Langer Dan at Aintree. That's another serious contender, obviously. But to be honest with you, bottom weights here, there's a lot of them coming in at the bottom of this. The bottom horses, you've got Digby, Hallowed Star, which ran earlier in the week, Black Stare, Rocco and Molly Wedger all come here in form, all have chances. I wouldn't be surprised to see a funny result, but at the same time, if you're going to have a bet, I think you have to stick with Townend Mullins. That's the form line, and I think they'll be there or thereabouts.
Well, you mentioned Digby there. I just want to bring up the form scan, obviously, by Mark Noonan. He is looking at Digby as a potential upset in the race, so I just wanted to highlight that. As again, another feature of IrishRacing.com, where you get some expert analysis on every race, or some of the bigger races at least. So yeah, good work, Vincent, covering that. I think hopefully we'll get you some value for the viewers. Moving on now back to Goodwood for the 2:45 and the Lily Langtry Stakes. Now, Stephen, you've actually got a fancy in this race, so take us through again your thoughts and break it down for us.
Well, I mean, this race is 8 runners. It's got quite a nice punter shape to it. We've got a short price favourite in Sela Rosa, who's around 13 to 8, 7 to 4 for looking. The one I prefer is James Fanshaw's mare Viola, who's around 12 or 14 to 1. I think that's a really fair price. I mean, to be honest with you, I think she's virtually the same horse as the favourite. They met at Haydock, 1 start back. Viola actually finished second on the 28th of May on decent ground, over 1 mile 4. And if you watch the run back, Viola was dropped out in rear, pulled very hard, and then had her run messed about when closing. And she absolutely flew home, stumbling close home when closing rapidly on Sela Rosa. Now, Sela Rosa is a typical haggis horse, idles a bit in front, so maybe Viola was flattered, but one of them's 7 to 4 and the other one's 12. Now, Viola's since come out and run 3rd in a small field. Again, she didn't settle, and there's only 8 runners here, so maybe she'll pull her chance away again. But I do think she's still improving run to run this season. James Fanshawe doesn't tend to have them wound up first. She should now be 100% fit. And if you can get on each way, 12 or 14 to 1, I think it's a cracking price. And the one thing I'll say about Sela Rosa, I mean, she ran in that race at Haydock the other day, won by Free Wind. Well, Free Wind got virtually knocked over against the rail. I'm not sure I'm racing to take 6-4, something that couldn't win that race. She got left clear. I thought she should have won. I mean, free win was probably valued for about 8 lengths. So quite what Sela Rosa achieved there is open to question. Anyway, at the prices, the long and the short of it, I think 12-1 Viola is a very fair price.
Now about Emily Dickinson in this one as well. I mean, what puts you off her, or is it just the case for Viola is just too strong?
Well, I mean, Emily Dickinson's had 5 runs since the 6th of April. She's been on the go. She's had a series of hard races. Now, Aidan O'Brien's a genius with these horses. He's flying along. He's had 10 winners in the last fortnight, 27% strike rate. So there's nothing wrong with his horses. And she ran okay at the Currawin, 4th behind Magical Lagoon. But I have my doubts as to what that form's worth. Magical Lagoon is a scrapper, a finder, rather than a particularly top-class performer. A very resolute galloper who fends them off for pressure. But they all finished in a bit of a heap there. Toy, Care de Guillot and Emily Dickinson. I doubt that represented any kind of improvement. Of course she can win. I respect her claims, but I don't think 5-2 is any bargain personally.
Fair enough. I think that's a fair assessment of the race. And now moving on, it seems to be a bit of a theme, Stephen. You're picking out kind of longer shots in your picks this week, and obviously your long shot goes in the next as well. So the 320, the Coral Stewards Cup at Goodwood. Take us through it, and it's a lot to get through here. 28 declared, should be a bit of a minefield.
Yeah, it's 28 runners, Joe. So nice and easy. But as we say every week on Jump To It, play each way. You're going to get 6th place. You might get 8 if you look around. They want to take your money on these kind of races. It looks at least 12-1 the field for me. Chill hadn't run for 10 months when he reappeared a couple of weeks ago, and he wasn't given a hard time at all. And I think that was the prep to get him ready for this. I beg your pardon, she's a mare, a 6-year-old mare of Andrew Balding's. I think it was a prep to get her fit and ready for this valuable prize. She wasn't knocked about at all. And the icing on the cake, she has got top weight to lump, never easy in these huge field Saturday handicaps. But Harry Davies is booked, who's the best £5 claimer riding. He's not going to have that £5 for long, and he takes that off. So should make her life a bit easier. She should be spot on. She's got a touch of class. They're not easy to place, these sprinters who are rated as highly as her. She's rated 110, and she's not quite group or struggles in listed company, and you've got to lump big weights in handicaps. But with Harry taking off £5, Andrew Balding's had a terrific week. All of his horses have run really well at Glorious Goodwood. I think he's had 10 winners in the last fortnight at the time of recording. And I thought Chill, who was around 16, there must have been a bit of money, or she's been tipped up somewhere, because she's only 12 now, maybe 14 for looking. Play extra places. I'm sure Chill will give you a good run for your money. Drawn 11, should be no excuses.
And Vincent, for you, any interesting angles good looking at the 320?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here. There's a very interesting Irish horse in it. John McConnell trains it, called Coachella or Coachello. It's a 4-year-old from France. It's never run for him yet. It won 5 times all at around this trip in France. So it's big question mark. I don't know how good this horse is. John McConnell wouldn't be known for sprinters particularly. He's a very good trainer, but not sprinters. It's interesting that the first run he gives the horses in the UK in this big 6-furlong sprint with 28 runners. There's some other interesting horses in this. I thought Comanche Fall, which won the race last year, unseated rider coming out of stalls in the Wokingham, looks to be a very big price. I thought it was maybe too big a price. You're talking 33s, 50s. It's £8 higher than last year, so that's probably a no. But at the same time, I thought it was a very big price. Summergand won the race in 2020, was 12th last year, 5th in the Wokingham. Looked like a little coming back to form for Summergand. Maybe has a chance. And then this Mr. Wagyu, which won the Scurry's handicap at the Curragh and Oaks weekend, was 4th in the Wokingham, but it picks up a £6 penalty for winning that race in Ireland. So maybe that's a no there, a slight negative. And then another one I thought had a chance, but so many have chances in this, is Inver. It's after winning its last 3, including the Buckingham Palace Stakes at Royal Ascot over 7. So wide open race, you could stick a pin in it almost.
Yeah, plenty to get through there. And obviously, again, when it's such a big field and so kind of little to be really strongly with, and then it's obviously best idea to not bet too much on these kind of races. But now we're going to wrap up with the last race we're going to feature. So Vincent, you're going to look at the 4:10 on Sunday at Galway for us. The Anahora Handicap, is that how you pronounce it?
Anahora Handicap is what it's called. Yeah, this is a traditional one of these ones in Galway. It's a big prize, 110,000 handicap. What's interesting here is we've got a horse called Current Option in it, which ran here on Tuesday in the BMW Mile. Aidan McGuinness trains it. He had I think he'd 7 or 8 horses in that. He's a load of horses in here again. He had won that BMW race 3 times the last 3 years. He had second in it this year, which also runs with a horse called Casanova. But Current Option has won this particular race the last 2 years. Now it's after drawn stall 13, which wouldn't be good. You're looking for low numbers generally to get the best chance. It doesn't say a high number can't win, but they need a good bit of luck in running. But Current Option certainly put its hand up to say it's just coming back to form now. It was its best run of the season here earlier in the week. This is its trip. It's after winning the race the last 2 years. Cian McRedmond, who rode one of the other runners for Aidan McGuinness in the race, he rode Salton Stall in the race on Tuesday. He's switched now to ride what looks to be the prime candidate here. Having said that, Salton Stall, which was very unlucky in running the other day, that got no run in the mile race on Tuesday. It's now got Colin Keane booked, so that's certainly a significant booking, but I think it's more a case that Current Option is the number one for the stable. Another very interesting runner here is a horse called On a Session, trained by David Barron. This horse finished second in this race in 2019 when it was trained in Ireland by a guy called Aidan Fogarty. It then switched to David Barron, came back to the race in 2020 and finished third, came back again last year and finished second to Current Option last year. Has to have a chance. It's after getting a very good draw in stall 2, so you'd expect a big run from this. Lee Roach is no stranger to winners. He's actually a local guy from Galway, so they got a Galway guy riding a horse that loves Galway. Big chance. There's no doubt that has a big chance from that stall. Another horse you see there under it, Nebo, that ran well in this race last year as well. 5th in the race last year. Has no form really coming into it, but you wouldn't be surprised to see that run well. That's got a good draw too. There's a whole host of these ran earlier in the week, including Pierre Lappin, which you can see there on screen, and Sir Jack Thomas. They all ran in that race on Tuesday. These Aidan McGuinness horses, he targets these 2 big handicaps, the one on Tuesday and this one on Sunday each year, and he generally comes out with a winner. So be interesting to see how it goes. I like 2, if you had to narrow it down to 2, it'd be Current Option and On a Session, which finished 1st and 2nd in the race last year. No reason to suspect they won't be thereabouts again.
Cracking stuff. Well, nice one, Vincent. And we're gonna have a review show on Monday, of course, with yourself, looking back at the Galway Festival. But I think now we can just sum up our tips, or your tips for the weekend. Stephen, you've already gone through yours, but just to summarise for us, just take us through your selections for the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really, really competitive weekend. These Saturdays are a bit of a minefield. The action comes at you thick and fast, but we've gone for 3 double-figure priced horses. Viola in the Lily Langtry, 245. There's no way in the world that she can be 14 or 16 to 1 in relation to Sila Rosa. I think they're nearly the same horse. Now, Sila Rosa might improve past Viola again. Did beat her earlier in the season. I thought she was a bit lucky to beat Viola that day. And Viola has had an excuse in a muddling race since. So I think she'll run well. I really like Boss Power. He's a bit of a cliff horse. He's one of those horses that keeps attracting money in these big handicaps and finishing on the heels of the principals without winning, but he's slipped down the weights. He's got Harry Davis up for the first time. I think that's a massive plus. I'm always willing to forgive a bad run at Chelmsford. A lot of horses just run inexplicably badly there, so I'm not too worried about that, and he's dropped a couple of pounds because of that. So Boss Power there, and in a nice easy Stewards Cup at 320, Chill, Andrew Balding's winning with the stable cat at the minute. Again, Harry Davis is up. Very much like that booking. She's a really classy mare when the cards fall right, and she should be a lot fitter for her first run in 10 months the other day.
Well, best of luck to you, Stephen. Hopefully more winners coming our way. And Vincent, over to you just to wrap up your selections, please.
Yeah, sure enough. The nap I already mentioned is La Prima Donna. I think this is a big price at 7 to 1. This is the race, the handicap hurdle on Saturday at Galway, that Willie Mullins is going to try and win for the 7th time in 10 years. Paul Townend rides. Be surprised if she's not thereabouts. Then the other 2 I've gone for both on Saturday as well. The value pick is Scenic Look in the first. This is a maiden hurdle, but this horse has already won during the week. It won on Wednesday evening when it beat the Hot Pot unanswered in a staying flat race over 2 miles. You'd have to think Scenic Look. That was a big run. Obviously a horse coming here in form. If this jumps the hurdles well enough, it should be thereabouts as well, and might be a nice price. There's a couple of other horses in this that did run during the week as well, including a horse called Merlin Magic of Emmett Mullins, which is bound to be fancied too. And then the long shot, I don't know how big a price this will be. We've no betting on the race yet, but there's this horse called Inchiquin Star. Ran earlier in the week over 1 mile and 123 yards and came there cruising, turning in. Looked a winner all over, turning into the straight. Had to come wide, turning in as well. But looked a winner. Didn't quite get home over the mile and 123 yards. It's back to 7 furlongs here. This has to be a contender. It showed plenty of pace the other day, just didn't quite get home. So over the shorter trip, I'd expect Inchiquin Star to be thereabouts as well.
Lovely stuff. Thanks a lot then, chaps. Well, that wraps it up for today's edition of Jump to It. Of course, if you do follow our tipsters' advice, then please do gamble responsibly. As I say, subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, because we'll be back on Monday for a full review of the Galway Festival and as well mentioning some highlights from Goodwood. But that's it. Thanks a lot, Stephen and Vincent. Thanks for joining me as ever. And we'll be back soon for another edition of Jump to It.